Hello,
Hello.
Harold. How are you?
How's your Hanukkah going?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
How many donuts are you up to?
I'm doing a pack a day.
Okay, not bad.
Uh,
The Surgeon General says up to two
Surgeon General.
packs a day. Yeah,
He's
there's a
not Jewish.
warning.
He don't understand.
There's a warning on the side of my donut. It's a skull and crossbones with a yarmulke on
Uh,
it.
funny.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. We were in Israel right before Hanukkah. They had donut everywhere you walked. There were donuts. It was
right.
too much.
I
Too
don't I don't like the sufganiyot in Israel. They're too thick,
No, it's like weird. It's like
like cake or something.
yeah, yeah.
Or it's like bread,
yeah,
right? It's
and they're
not
too
light. It's
big.
not light.
It's like a cake donut, which is different than a fried donut. Yeah.
Okay, we're on Sadiq Gimel, 93. Boy minei Rami Bar Chama and Rav Chisda. Nites al bagid tamei ma. We learned that if blood of a chata spatters or splatters on a beged, you have to rinse it, clean it. You have to launder it. What if the beged is tamei? And therefore the blood becomes tamei once it hits the beged. Does it require kibbutz? Because we've learned that a chatas that is pasul does not require kibbutz. So it happens exactly at the same time. When it hit the beged, it's still kosher. So what's the din? On Ravuna Breder of Yeshua. The way Rami Bar Chama phrased the question, Shmami na haisala kosher v'nifsla ein damaton kibbutz. He's of the opinion that if originally the korban was okay and then became pasul, the blood doesn't require kibbutz. But when is that hanamili b'zacharzeh? When it happens sequentially, first there's an invalidation, and then the blood gets on a garment. Aval b'vasachas slow. But maybe if it's not sequential, but it happens at exactly the same time, maybe it would require kibbutz. Oidilma loishna. Maybe there's no difference. Armalei prukted Rabbi Lazar Rabbanan. This is talui in a machlokas between Rabbi Lazar and Chachamim. Aliba de Rabba, the way Rabba explained the komentar tzabai. What is this? The Tanya. Rabbi Lazar oimer mechatas shenitmeu. You have para aduma that was burnt, so you have ashes, and then you mix the ashes with water. So now you have mechatas. And the mechatas is used to be metayar people who are tamei with tumas meis. Let's say the mechatas itself becomes tamei. Does the water work? Rabbi Lezer says yes. Metari. And where's his proof? Shaharei nida mazin alel. A woman who is tamei with tumas nida, who also becomes tamei with tumas meis, can become purified from tumas meis at that time. So the tuma does not affect the mechatas. The Amar Rabba, Rabbi Lezer b'shitas Rabbi Kiva Rabbo Amra. Rabbi Lezer was following in his Rebbe Rabbi Kiva. The Amar, ha'avaras kli al gabi makam tamei kamunach tamei. If you have a kli, which is tohor, and you pass it over a place that is tamei, now we're not talking about tumas mace, which has tumas oil. Anything that is mile over tumas mace, of course, becomes tamei. But here we're talking about anything that's tamei. Let's say a sheretz. Rabbi Kiva holds that when you pass a kli over something that is tamei, you have to view it as if it is resting below on the item, and therefore it becomes tamei. Where do we see this din of Rabbi Kiva? This not. There's an oven that is against the wall, and a person is standing on the other side of the oven. v'sheretz betanu, and there's a tamei sheretz in the oven. V'hoishet yada l'chalon, the wall which the oven backed into had a window over it. And a person stuck his hand in the window, v'notol salogin, and there was paraduma water there. He took it, ve'avira pitan. He passed it over the opening of the oven. Rabbi Kiva metame, because Rabbi Kiva says you have to view anything that's passing over as if it's munach. However, chachamim mitar ubaha pligi. Rabbi Kiva savar kemunach tami, that when you pass something over something, it's as if it's resting there. And if it's resting there, it's going to become tummy through the sheretz. V'rabbanan savi lav kemunach tami. If it's in the airspace, we don't view it as it's munach. Now, Eisvei Abaya, on this explanation that Rabbah gave, Abaya said, Moide Rabbi Kiva, Bazar Shavira Klicheres Tome. Let's say you were sprinkling paraduma water on somebody, and the water passed over a klicheres that was tame, or al gabi mishkav u'moishav tame, or a couch that a Zav or Anita had sat on. Shehi Tohoira. There, Rabbi Kiva doesn't say that the drops of water passing over these things becomes Tameh. She'en lecha davar shemetame lemala kilamata. Ela kazayis ben hameis. Only kazayis ben hameis will, if you pass something over it, even though you don't touch it, it's metame it betumas soel. Ushar kol hamahilin. And anything else that there is tuma that passes through ohel. Primarily tumas meis. What is the other things? Lasui even amenugas. So for example, a stone taken from a house that's afflicted with saras. So, if you sprinkle water over something that's tamei, the water does not become tamei from it. So, we wanted to say that when you metayar a nida with mechatas, that really doesn't hold water anymore. Because even Rabbi Kiva agrees that the water itself that you sprinkle is not going to become tummy. Rather, Abaya says, when you have a kli with mechatas and you pass it over something, it's not viewed as it's resting on that thing. So what's the machlokes between Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim? Rabbi Kiva server gazrinan shamayanuach. We say that the water becomes tamei as a gzeira because maybe it'll come to rest on the oven. V'rabbanan savi lo gazrinan. Umoide Rabbi Kiva bazah. But when you sprinkle a person with paraduma water, once the water has left your fingers, kiva de nafak nafak. So you can't say, oh, maybe if it's in a kli and you're passing the kli over the item, oh, maybe you'll come to put it down. But once you're sprinkling, we're not worried that you're going to do that. Now, Rabbi Lozav Rabbanon b'may kamifli. So what do Rabbi Lozav and the Chachamim argue on Rabbiya? Bidonin tuma keduma mituma shabosa shokamifli. Can you learn a din from a case where there was tuma before to the case where something is tummy right now? That means the fact that you can sprinkle mechatas on a nida, even though it becomes tummy when you sprinkle it, it still works. But can you learn that to other things? Rabbi Lazar says, yeah, you can. Mar savar donin. Umar savar ain't donin. So that's one way to understand this machlokas. Rava Amar different. Kula Amar ain't donin. We cannot learn from when somebody is previously tumah with tumas nida to a case like ours. So what's the machlokas between the Rabban and the Rabbi Lazar? Hachma b'hakamifli. The Rabbi Lazar savar hazah tzricha shir. When you do hazah, you need a certain amount of water that must fall on the person who's tummy. If it's just a minimal amount, it's not going to work. And mitzarfin lazos. You can, let's say you were sprinkled at this minute, and later on you were sprinkled later on. You can add these up. However, Rabbanan Savari Hazah ain't tzricha shir. The Chachamim say the moment the mechatas hits the person, he becomes tohar. And therefore, when you sprinkle on a nida, it also happens simultaneously. It happens immediately. So we can't say anything about a din where something was tummy before. Torah. We said that if a chatas is pasul, the blood that spills on a beged does not require laundry. Because it says midama. Midam ksheira v'lo midam psul. Only from blood that is kosher to put on the mizbeach, not from dam that you're not allowed to put on the mizbeach. Rabbi Kiva Oimer, Haisala shasa kosher v'nifsala. If the korban was mutter at one point and only later became pasul, damaton kibus. Even though now the korban is pasul, if the blood spatters, you have to clean it. If it never had a shasa kosher, like we learned, if you had a machshavas pigul, if it was never kosher, lo yislo shasa kosher v'nifsala, then ein dama ton kibus. Then if the blood spills, it does not require kibus. Rab Shimon Oimer, echad zeh v'echad zeh ein dama ton kibus. Once the korban is invalid, we don't care whether it had a shasa kosher or not. The blood does not require laundry. My time at Rab Shimon. Ksiv osa. It says, Kol zachar b'kohanim yochal osa. Uksiv midama. Chad lehechad asel shasa kosher. One says that you don't have to wash it, do the laundry if it had a period of time of validity, and the other when it was never valid. What does Rabbi Kiva do with osa? Prat l'truma. That you do not have a chiyuv of marika ushtifa, meaning hagala on a kli that you cook truma in, only have it on kodshim. Why doesn't Rab Shimon use osa prat l'truma? Rab Shimon l'tamei. The Omar kodshim kalim ein tu'unim marika ushtifa. He says that kodshim kalim like shlami doesn't require marika ushtifa, only chatas does. The kosher can't truma. He learns it at Kavachomer from kodshim kalim. He doesn't need osa to exclude truma. Mishnah. Nitiz minat savar la beged. So these laws, where if the blood spills on a garment, you have to launder it. It's only if you were makabel the blood in a kli, and then that blood is now roy to do zrik on the mizbeach. But for example, nitiz minat savar la beged. If when you shechted the animal, the blood spurts from the neck of the animal onto the beged, eino ton kibus. It does not require kibus. Let's say you apply the blood onto the keren of the mizbeach, and it spills on your beged, mina keren or mina yisod. You pour the shirayim, the remainder of the blood on the base of the mizbeach, and it splashes at you. Eino ton kibus. It does not require laundry. Nishpach ala ritzvah. When you shechted the animal, the blood spilled on the floor. V'asfal. And then you gathered it up and put it in a kli. Ein ta'un kibus. It does not require kibus. Because lechatchila, you shouldn't do zrika for such dam. And the Gemara gives us the rule, the Mishnah gives us the rule. Ein ton kibus el adam shniskabel b'kli v'roy lazo. The only time when blood spills on a beged that it requires kibus, if it was originally collected in a kli, and therefore is roy lazo. Torabon. Yachol nitiz minat savra ala beged yeton kibus. I might think that blood spurting from the neck of the animal onto a beged would require laundry. Talmud lo amar asher yizeh. Lo amarti lecha leberoy lazo. The only time I require kibus is blood that is fit to be nizrak ala mizbeach. Tanidich. Yachol nitiz min hakeren u'min hayisod yeton kibus. I might think that blood that splatters on your beged from the keren, from the horn of the mizbeach, or from the base, Talmud lomar asher yizeh, prat lezeh shekvar huzeh. This blood had already been sprinkled. This is after sprinkling blood. That does not require kibbutz. Then the Mishnah said nishpach ala ritzpah. If it spilled on the ground and you regathered it, again, if this kind of blood spills on a beged, you don't have to launder it. So the Gemara says hasulamali. Why do I need this? Ma tam komer. The Mishnah is giving us a reason. Ma tam nishpach la ritzpah vasfoin ton kibbutz. Why is it that if the blood spills on the floor and you gather it, it does not require laundry? Only dam that is appropriately collected in a kli and is roy lazah, only that type of blood needs kibbutz. Now, what does the Mishnah teach us further when it says roy lazah? What kind of blood is not going to be roy lazah? There's a minimum amount of blood to use for zrika. If you collect it in one kli, less than the shear, and in another kli, less than the shear, this blood would not require laundry. The Tanya. Rabbi Chalafta bar Shul Oimer. Kidesh pachos b'chlei hazayah b'chlei zeh. Upachos b'chlei hazayah b'chlei zeh. If you collect it in a kli, less than the shear hazayah, in one kli and one in, so lo kiddush. This is hazah for paraduma. This Mishnah talks about you're mixing water with the ashes of a paraduma. There's also a minimum amount that you need to sprinkle, and if you collected less than an amount in a kli, lo kiddush, then the mayim has not become activated to be metayer mesi iboilu. So bidah mau, what's the case regarding when you receive the blood of a chatas that is offered inside, like parilam davar shud tzibur? Hilchasihi. Do we say that by mechatas, it's aloch l'moshe mesina that you have to do a certain amount, minimum of water? Umehilchas lo gamrina. And from haloch l'moshe mesina regarding that, you can't move it over to dam. Oidil also my time, maybe it has nothing to do with haloch l'moshe mesina. Diksiv toval b'mayim. You shall dip in the water. You dipped the hyssop, right? There was a certain plant that they dipped and they used that to sprinkle. So hachanami ksiva toval badam. If over there you need a certain shear because you need a certain amount to be toivil, well, here too you have to dip your finger. So what's the answer? Toshma. The Amr of Zrik Amr Abelazar. Af bedam lo kiddush. If you had received less than the shear hazah in a kli, it's not fit to be used. Amr Rav Tanya. This halacha was taught in a beraisa. The taval, meaning the kohen has to dip his finger in the blood. V'lo mesapik, but he can't wipe it. You can't wipe your finger either around the inner part of the kli or the bottom. You have to dip it into the blood itself. Badam ache badam shir tefila mikaro. There has to be enough in the kli for you to be able to dip your finger in it. Min adam shebe'inyan. And we're talking about blood that's discussed in that parsha, which is Par Yom Kippur or Par Elam Dover Shel Tzibur, where he sprinkled it 7 times on the parochas. Well, there's got to be enough blood to apply to the parochas 7 times. Itzrich lemichtav badam. You need to write badam. Because Rachman of v'toval, only v'toval, having avul pitilak ashir tefila mikar. I might that you wouldn't need a special shear in the beginning, because Rachman badam that you needed at the beginning. Because Rachman badam having a feel masabik, maybe by sort of using your finger to wipe the bottom of it, not necessarily to dip it in, because Rachman of v'toval. And then min adam shebe'inyan, when we talk about the dam of the inner chatos, what is it excluding lemute mai? Amarav lemute shiraim shebe'etzba. The remainder of the blood that remains on the finger, that's the shirayim, you can't use that anymore. That's finished. And Misayel Rabbi Lazar, shirayim shebe'etzba psulin. After you did achas ushtayim with your finger, and you had some blood remaining, that's possible for doing more zrika. Amar Ravin Barav Adel Rav. Amar Talmid Cham Rav Amram. Your Talmid name Rav Amram said, Tanina. Hayamazeh. The kohen was sprinkling the parlam dover shel tzibur on the parochas. V'nitza azami yodo. And some of that blood got caught on his beged. Achalohiza, if this is blood before he started doing the sprinkling, ton kibus. But mishihiza, after he has sprinkled, ain ton kibus. My lavachi kamar, gomer malahazois. It means he hasn't finished doing the azah when it went on his beged. Ton kibus, mishi gomer lahabos. When he finished it sprinkling, ain ton kibus. It doesn't require that. So it seems that maybe the blood that is remaining on the finger remains okay for hazah. So more says lo hachikam. Ad shlo yatzis hazah miyado. If the sprinkling hasn't left his finger, then ton kibus. Mishi yatzis hazah miyado. Once it leaves his finger, then if any of that gets on his beged, ain't ton kibus. However, Eisvei Abaya, it says Gomer Milazis. He finished. This is when he's shechted the poraduma, and he has to sprinkle the poraduma towards the Beis Hamikdash. Mikanech yodo begufa shel para. Any blood on his hand, he wipes on the body of the para. But that's Gomar in. So he's finished. Lo Gomar lo. So maybe the stuff that is remaining on the finger is okay for hazah. Amrle, no. Gomer mekanech yada begufa shel para. There we learned you have to clean your hand on the body of the cow. But loy gomer mekanech etzbo. If he hasn't finished doing the azah, then he doesn't wipe his hand, he only wipes the finger. Because that which remains on the finger is not ready for azah. So bishma gomer mekanech yada begufishal para. I understand when everything is done, you clean your hand by wiping it on the body of the cow. Shenemar v'sarafis apara leina. You have to burn everything, including the blood. Ela etzbo b'may mekanech. How does he clean the finger? On the lip or the rim of the kli. K'dichsiv kifore zahav. Mishnah. Nitiz ala or. You have a hide of the animal after you shechted it, and blood sprinkled on the hide. Achloi hufshid. If you haven't stripped the hide from the animal, enaton kibus. Misha hufshid. Once you stripped it from the animal, it becomes a beged to own kibbutz. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Lazar Omer af mishuf should eneton kibbutz. He says even after you stripped it, it's not enough. It's only potential to be a beged, to be makabel tuma. It requires some working, so it's not ready. So therefore, it doesn't require laundry. And ve'eneton kibbutz el b'mokum adam. The laundry only has to be done where the dam is. The davar shu roy lekabel tuma. The beged has to be something that is roy lekabel tuma. The roy lekibus, and lends itself to laundering. Echad beged, vechad sak, vechad or tuning kubus. Whether it's cloth, whether it's sackcloth, whether it's leather, it all requires kibus. Where do you do the kibbutz? A kibbutz b'makom kodesh. You do it in the Azara. Ushviras kli cheres. A kli cheres you cannot launder. If you cook meat in a kli cheres, you have to destroy it. B'makom kodesh. Umrika ushtifa b'kli nechoshet b'makom kodesh. You have to, when you cook meat in a kli, you have to purge it and rinse it. It has to be done in the Azara. This is the only type of kodshe kodshim, i.e. a chatas, where you have to wash blood with laundry. An ola and an osham does not require this. Menanimili. The Torah Rabbanan beged. The Torah says something that you wear. Eli ala beged. Minali rabbis or mishusha. What about leather that's been stripped from the animal? Anything that you sprinkle it on. Maybe hide that's on the animal still needs kibbutz. Talmud lomer beged. Ma beged aroy lekabel tuma. Beged is something that's roy lekabel tuma. Avkol roy lekabel tuma. The Rabbi Yehuda. When the hide is still on the animal, it's not roy lekabel tuma. Rabbi Lezer will learn a different limud, which we'll leave for tomorrow. Tomorrow, I am leaving for Florida for the weekend, so I am going to teach at 5:30. Okay? It has to be earlier. That way, and then Friday we'll come up with the time also. Probably do it at 3 o'clock. We have to do it earlier. We'll talk about it.
Early.
Huh?
It has to be earlier because
Right. Well, I'll have to find out when Shabbos is there. It may have to be like 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
All right.
okay. So tomorrow it's at
Tomorrow
5:30.
at 5:30.
Pacific, 5:30 Pacific.
5:30 Pacific.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
All right.
Yeah, good night.
You
Go ahead.